Actually remember. I remember the first time I saw you when I first moved here.
Yeah?
It was at North Bar.
Yeah, man. I genuinely miss that place.
Yeah.
It was so I moved here August of 2020, and I was living in like Wicker Park, so I was just so that was my I moved during the pandemic. So I remember my first sort of I remember there was like a bit of a summer resurgence. So when I moved there was like no stand up, maybe some park stuff which I wasn't really doing. And then my first show, I just wanted to go see a show at some point, and I wanted to go see like Rich Voss at he's this New York comedian who's great, this old dude. And I want to see him at North Bar, and
He's the guy. He was like with the Kevin Hart crew and Bill Burr and all them.
definitely Bill Burr. Yeah, really old school New York comic. Yeah, probably. I don't even know. It's beyond my years of when he was famous. But
Right. So you saw him at North Bar?
yeah, that was my first Chicago time watching comedy in Chicago.
Did you move here for comedy?
I was kind of looking for a job, but I was trying to find a job in a good comedy city. So I was like looking in various, but Chicago always kind of was on my mind. I started in San Diego, and kind of also wanted to leave California.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I have so many questions now.
Oh yeah.
Because when I first moved here, everyone was like, "Why would you leave California?"
Yeah. You're from California too?
Yeah.
Got
I'm
it.
from Riverside though.
Got it. I'm from Diamond Bar. My sister goes to
yeah.
UCR.
That's wild. Okay.
And my mom works in Riverside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what was people's reaction when you moved here? Were they
I mean, the same means like in California, everyone like not even jokingly, genuinely, like, you're gonna die. Like you will pass away walking from your house to your car.
Were they saying that about the cold or the shootings?
The cold, and I mean, whatever, depending on what their political beliefs were, they would choose one of them. That's an easy way to tell where they are in that spectrum.
It was really frustrating for me.
Yeah.
Like when I decided I wanted to move out here, and I was like excited. I was like, "Oh, stand up in Chicago!"
Yeah.
And everyone just, "Oh, you're gonna get shot and you're gonna freeze
course.
to death." It was I don't know. It was a lot of negativity, but
No, completely. I mean, just like the things I thought what I imagined Chicago was just this frozen wasteland. And then I got there like August 2020, and I'm just walking in Wicker Park. So I drove with one of my buddies of mine. So we just arrive, and then you just kind of see all these trees, and it's just really quiet. I mean, it's Wicker Park also, but it was like, oh my God, this is not there wasn't one in my imagination that matched up with what I'm seeing.
yeah, Chicago is beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Oh my God! And I'm sure dude. I love meeting people from California. 'Cause
Yeah.
you'll get it. The seasons.
Of course. No, I mean right now when I just smell the air,
Yeah.
you don't get that smell in California.
Yeah.
It's
It's dirt.
Yeah, exactly. It all smells the same. You can just take a whiff and kind of know what month you're in generally.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, I do love it.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm glad we're on the same page about that.
Yeah, man.
So you moved here for work.
Yeah.
And you did stand up in San Diego though.
Did it for a while. Yeah.
Okay.
I started 2015. So I was doing it in San Diego probably till 2019, and then I moved back to my parents. So I moved. So I mean, it's an hour and a half north where my parents live, but so I was kind of doing like Orange County, LA, kind of bouncing between West Coast things for about until the pandemic happened, and then moved here.
Tell me about that. So pandemic hits.
Yeah.
You're living at home.
Living at home. So the job I moved out here was supposed to start. So I kind of had it rolling. Like I had
pre-pandemic,
and then it was supposed to start March 2020. And then around January, I mean, I want to remember the first lockdown was maybe February, late February. No, it must have been March. I do remember doing a show early March, and this is when the pandemic was like pretty serious in China. And I just remember this comic going up and doing this bit about how he had a gas mask on. And just like everyone was just dying. I mean, he would just make it like, and then straight up 2 days later, we shut down. I'm a pretty careful person, but I was at like an improv. Like it was no social distancing. Everyone was like having fun. And then it just was boom. 2 days later, it shut down.
How did you feel during all of that? Like, what was your experience of it?
Yeah, it was, I mean, I was really excited about moving. It was supposed to be, this was like the biggest move I've ever done. I never really left like California for an extended period of time. But it was also like immediately once it shut down, I reached out to the job. They were like, look, we can't, it doesn't make sense for you to come out now. Come out. We might have a spot for you later, but right now don't come out. And there was like a little bit of a relief that the timeline didn't end up with me moving out a month before. And then I didn't really know anybody in Chicago and then being stuck. And I'm close to my family. So it was also my brother and my sister came back home. So it was the first time in a while the whole family was back together. So it was a bummer on the stand-up end, but other than that, I was relieved that the timeline ended up where I can be home.
Yeah.
I didn't sign a lease out here. I didn't do anything serious.
Yeah. I don't know what your experience was after moving in terms of making friends and everything.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine doing it at that time in particular would have been...
Oh my, it would have been awful. It would have been terrible.
Yeah. Stuck in a tiny apartment.
Of course.
And just now knowing what coming out of winter feels like, where you're like, I need to go outside and then you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of my friends all my closest friends are through comedy. Means I have friends outside of that, but it does feel like my most serious friendships are always through comedy. And without that, I'm honestly, all the friends I make outside of comedy are like through comics too, like through their friends and family who I end up meeting up with.
There's a brotherhood.
Yes,
that
of
comes
course.
with comedy. The first thing I remembered about you, and it still sits with me, is your comedy is incredibly intelligent.
Thanks. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I assume that's what you're going. I can't imagine you're doing that shit on accident.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something when I moved to Chicago and I started doing stand-up again. Means it had been, I took pretty much a full year off since March, probably a year and a half. I wasn't really doing the Zoom stuff or the park
Zoom
stuff.
Shit was depressing.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. I did one of them and I was like, oh yeah, I don't think I'm ever gonna do this again.
Yeah.
And I was mostly in San Diego just doing kind of one-liners and doing shorter jokes. And when I moved out here, I was kind of making an active effort to just do more idea-based comedy. And I'm not really too goofy of a guy, so it just ends up being a little more.
Yeah.
I don't want it to come across as seeming like esoteric on purpose, but I think it just ends up being like it feels a little different than what most people are doing.
I think it's incredibly different, actually. I think when I see you on stage, I see someone that is just almost meticulous.
Thanks. Yeah.
And I wonder. So, on my end of things, I think when I first started doing stand up, I was trying to kind of be like what you are.
When did you start?
See, I started when I was 18, but
Got it. Yeah. In Riverside?
Yeah.
Got it. It's a terrible scene.
Oh
I've done some Riverside stuff. Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
I've been this past year, most of this podcast has been me shitting on Riverside.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just make a concerted effort not to do that.
Sure.
But in short, yeah, it's not a good scene. I did do stand up in college in San Diego.
Cool.
But I didn't know where anything was. I was in San Marcos. It was just
Got it. You went to CSU?
Cal State San Marcos.
Yeah, or Cal State. Yeah. I went to UCSD, so that's why I was in San Diego.
There you go.
So we were kind of around the same.
Yeah. And I wasn't taking it seriously. Yada.
Sure.
I would say I started really getting into it and being serious around 2016.
Got it.
And when I started, my guys were always like Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle and all that. But one of the guys, and a lot of people don't know this actually, do you know Christopher Titus?
Yeah, totally.
His thing with the storytelling and how I was trying to do that, but in like a air quote intellectual way.
Sure.
And I think I just mostly came off pretentious.
It's hard to not talk about dicks without sounding like you studied comedy at college.
Right. and now I think my voice and my style is very emotion based. It's very it comes from this is not where your heart is. The fuck.
Yeah, somewhere
where your heart is.
Yeah, it comes from your sternum, straight there.
Yeah. and I'm curious because like when I bomb, there's an awkwardness in that I've been leaning into emotion, so people can.
Right.
It's very raw.
Right, totally. I see that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've seen me bomb?
No, I was talking about the emotion thing, but I seen the bombing too.
Yeah. I'm curious on an intellectual way, like how does that work for you when you're bombing and it's like your jokes are so heady?
Yeah.
How do you go about it?
Yeah, I think I have developed, I mean, I genuinely think I did switch styles, and when you're bombing with shorter jokes, it is easier. You have a net one locked and loaded, and even if they don't get the last three, maybe these other three they'll get them just because they're so unconnected. But yeah, when I bomb now, it means like a minute in, I'm like, oh, I'm bombing this whole set.
Really? Like you can feel that's what's gonna happen?
Means more just like if they don't get what I'm doing now, it's gonna be the same. Like in terms of tone and the kind of jokes. Like I'm not gonna. It means and I think this is also something I'm not that good at, but also in terms of just like winning crowds over. But I'm like 2 minutes in and they don't get me. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna do my thing and I've accepted it and it's painful. But I'm also good at I very rarely give up on what I'm doing. So I do have like these older, shorter jokes, and I make it a concerted effort never to do what I didn't have planned. I never like to switch based on how I'm doing. If I had a set planned and I want to talk about this, I usually stick with it.
Okay, this will be fun because I'm very different. What is your inspiration? Why go this route? Do you, other than it's just who you are, I guess?
Yeah.
Why approach comedy this way?
Yeah, I think maybe there's sort of whenever you're doing a stand-up set, I think you can kind of think of it as there's two kinds of comics. One type really cares like you're an entertainer and your goal is to make the people watching have as good of a time as possible. And the other side, which I think I fall into more, is this is for me. I want to do comedy that I like the most and then use their reaction as feedback to get better at it and to improve myself as a comic. But it is pretty self-centered in the sense that I'm doing comedy to get better at this in the way I want to.
Right. You're like a walking calculator, man. The way you
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, if I switch styles or I do things that they might like, which I don't really care about, it doesn't really help me get better. It just puts on a better show.
I get you. There's an integrity.
Maybe not, but also it does depend on what kind of show I'm doing.
Okay.
If I'm doing a city show, there's plenty of comedy around. It's a showcase. There's plenty of people to make people have a good time. Then I care less about doing well, in the sense that I won't change my material if I'm not doing well. But you'll do everything. Every now and then you do these shows where you're like the only entertainment that they have in town, or you're headlining, or you're doing something, and then you feel like more of an obligation of this is their night, and you determine whether they have a good night or not.
Do you you do out of state?
I mean, not so much in Chicago. I mean, for this reason, means I used to travel more in California, but here, like, if I go to any of the smaller suburban cities, I feel more of that responsibility, as well as they also don't get me as much. So it's kind of both things I don't like.
Yeah, I've been trying to picture you in fucking Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it.
No, completely. I was in Appleton doing that Skyline, and just bombing. They don't. And it's not an indictment of them. It's just like, I'm just not interested in doing what they're interested in, which is very family-oriented stuff, and also it's just like, there is a difference when you're playing comedy to people who haven't watched tons of comedy,
right,
versus people who are kind of online, or kind of, at least they kind of know what comedy is. I've been in front of crowds in the Midwest where you can feel they want Larry the Cable Guy. Right, completely.
It's just not,
No, of course.
Do you find yourself, I mean, I assume you get the liberal cuck bullshit, like.
Yeah, I mean, I never had any bad experience when shouting that, but you can see it in their eyes a little bit. You can see it in the way they stare at me.
Yeah, because I can't recall any of them. It's so funny. I see you once, and then like a few months go by, and I'm like,
sure.
Shit, he's back.
Yeah.
But you talk about like what is your writing process? Like, what do you? Because I'm trying to put into words what I picture your jokes as.
Right.
Like, how do you? Yeah, what is your writing process?
Yeah, so it ends. So I think that I end up being very project focused. So when I moved to Chicago, I had this idea of recording something. So I wanted to record close to an hour, and I kind of already had people who were interested in like once it's ready to film it and stuff. So when I started writing in Chicago, I had this idea of doing like lawn bits, and it pretty quickly ended up realizing I wanted to do like 4 10-minute lawn bits which it ended up being pretty close to. So when I was writing for that, it was pretty much once I had an idea that I knew had enough lead work, I would start like from like August to November. I was working on the first 10 minutes. So just at first writing a lot of ideas to build up the time, and then once it had enough ideas, then trying to write better punchlines. So a very big like ideas to honing to making it funnier and making it tighter. So expansion and contraction, and then I was switching. Once that felt good, I switched to the next 10 minutes. So that was very purposeful.
You're a fucking machine, man.
I mean, but it's also just how I think about this kind of stuff.
Right.
I think I care about, I like structure a lot, both in like every aspect. So
I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Your topic. So when you get those first ideas, where is it coming from? Like,
yeah,
it's random or
that first thing which I ended up recording last summer ended up being a lot from my childhood. Because for some reason, whenever I would imagine anything when I was a kid that I didn't remember at first, but someone brought up, and then you instantly remember it, it always makes me laugh. I have this big Chuck E. Cheese joke, and the first thing that kind of, I remember the first line. I said this in a conversation about how like my parents used to never like give me tokens to play the game, so I played a lot of dry air hockey, and I just remember thinking about that moment because it's something you don't really remember, and that made me laugh enough where I was like, okay, I think I want to do something about Chuck E. Cheese, but also kind of about that experience of, being at an arcade where you got to be thrifty.
Yeah.
And I ended up writing on it, and it ended up morphing the joke a lot to being
now
a
you're
little
balling
different.
now. You got earrings and everything. Where you go?
No, I'm crazy now. Yeah, this is.
Is that new?
Pretty new since the summer. Yeah.
What was that? Yeah, man. You got earrings now. That you changing it up. What was this decision?
Those are fun. I mean, I did it kind of spontaneously, but I think like I never really put too much effort into my appearance, but I do like feeling and looking different, and I feel like this is the most quick way to feel like a different person where you don't have to go and think about your outfit every day. You're just in there and you're a different person.
Dude, I know exactly what you mean. I'm also in this headspace of changing up my I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
I'm real stubborn. I'm set in my ways, and I've always kind of been that way.
Right.
And then quarantine, to go back to that,
Yeah.
shook things up, and I realized, like, oh, I need to not be doing the same. I'm going in circles.
Right. Were you out here during the pandemic, or did you move after?
I moved after. I moved.
Got it.
What was it? Summer 2021.
Got
think.
it.
So things were opening up.
Got it.
And I was stubborn. I refused to change in any way. I think I was afraid to change, to be honest. And when quarantine forced everything to change, and when I needed, and I realized like, I need an even bigger change. I need to move to Chicago.
Right.
I've been slowly, this past year of me being here has been slowly changing and figuring out like, who am I?
Yeah, totally.
So the earrings thing, I got my nose pierced this past summer.
It means something about you. If you're willing to put a hole through your face, that's some character development.
It fucking hurts too.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Dude.
I'm kind of uneasy about doing the nose. It also just sounds the amount of care even for these has been a little more than I expected. I mean, that first couple months they were getting infected, and I had to keep washing them, and I was like, man, that is a good amount of upkeep.
But you can switch them out, which is cool.
It is fun, yeah.
You anime at all?
A little bit, yeah.
I want to buy the what is it? The Dragon Ball Z, the hangy ones. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, not really, but
god damn it, I want to.
But they sound cool.
Oh yes, anything anime is cool. But. You were saying, so you were filming stuff, you headline, right?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, most of the time it's me asking, but people also vouch for me enough. It's very rare that people ask me to do it, but I have enough. I'm in that weird position where if I want a headline, I think I can at some places.
It's that is incredibly impressive to me.
Thanks. Yeah.
A lot of, I mean, a good deal of these people are very impressive to me.
Of course.
In that you guys, I'm lumping you into a lot of these people.
Sure.
You guys seem to know how to approach this on a business level.
Yeah. Yeah.
The two people I continue that runs through my mind in that regard are Tyler Fowler and Vic Pondia. Those two are goddamn businessmen.
Yeah, they dress like it too.
Yeah. Both of them smooth as fuck when they get on stage.
Yeah.
And I wonder. So my approach to it as of recently, in a professional sense, is one to try to like hang out more.
Yeah.
I'll go to places and I'll fucking disappear because of the social anxiety of things.
Sure.
So that's been my little baby step there.
Which I get. Yeah.
But for you, what is your approach been professionally, like in the business sense of things?
I mean, I always get in the habit of dividing things, but I think there's a difference in whether you want to become a professional touring comic, if that's your goal, be able to make a living doing stand-up, versus what interests me, which is I want to record stuff. That for me is the final output of anything. It doesn't matter how good something is or what something is when it's being built. I just want that recorded hour to be good, which changes how I approach it. Where in terms of like the business side, in terms of just like what I also lump in as getting shows, getting booked, not even just like making money, is I try and like pace it for when I need shows. Like right now I'm just building new stuff. And shows are useful for that. But a lot of times like I don't want to deal with the stakes. Like if I'm doing like a really important show and I have a new idea, I don't even want to have to like go through that mental deliberation of like, man, is this worth doing? And the booker sees me. I don't even like to think about that stuff. So in these periods, I will do any show that's asked, but I mostly want to just do my new stuff and try new stuff and be okay with bombing. And then as things the ideas are that I want to hone, then I want to start doing shows. In which case, I'm pretty deliberate about asking and setting up stuff and getting good runs together.
That is so funny, man, because I think, and I've noticed this through doing this podcast and talking to all these different types of comics.
Yeah.
I think I get excited when I meet comics that approach things so differently than me.
Yeah, completely.
Like, so for me, I think I'm a little unhinged in that I kind of thrive off of chaos.
Yeah, sure.
So that organization of like, don't try to book shows, just make this work at mics.
Yeah.
And then book, like that's so.
It's pretty rigid. Yeah.
It's rigid and it's intelligent.
Yeah, sure.
Or practical. I guess.
Sure.
And I mix it so like I'll go to open mics and then I'll trying to squeeze new shit in, or I like to. Do you riff at all? Do you do a lot of crowd work?
Yeah, I try to do more of it nowadays. Especially when I'm in this portion where I'm trying to get ideas. Then I'm quite happy to ask crowds and get better at that stuff.
I love the chaos. I love like talking to the audience and having no fucking idea what they're gonna say or do, or having these moments of like sometimes I will sacrifice the laugh for getting my feelings and a point across.
Yeah.
Which isn't
if it feels right at that moment.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not, but you know, it's part of the game.
Yeah, totally.
And you just, I don't know, were you always like that? How were you raised to be kind of focused like this?
Yeah, maybe. I have immigrant parents, and you're kind of brought up with, it's very school focused. It means all this, and I think I was playing music, and I was taking music lessons growing up, and that's also extremely structured. It means this is a curriculum that's been developed by teachers for years. It means.
What do you play?
I played piano and violin. At once I liked it, but once I graduated, I haven't really picked them up. And yeah, I was reasonably serious about school, and even my creative interests, I was like into filmmaking and stuff, but all very structured hobbies where there's phases. I mean, filmmaking was like the first sort of creative thing I took seriously, and that is very like, if you want to get any better at it than the standard student filmmaker, it's all about pre-production, production, post-production. It means being very caring about the phases and doing what's necessary at that point.
How does your family feel about stand-up?
Yeah, it means I don't think they quite got it for a little, but my parents are always support. My parents are very progressive immigrant parents. It means my dad's Indian, my mom's Vietnamese, so even them sort of marrying each other was kind of unheard of in their sort of. maybe not unheard of, but unexpected for their families.
Right.
And so they were already more open-minded and they're still immigrant parents at heart, but I remember I didn't drive until I was like 20. I was a late driver, and I started signing at 18. So most of the time I was like taking public trans and stuff, but my parents had definitely dropped me off at an open mic when I was in town.
That's good for you.
Yeah, so they were always supportive in the sense, I don't think they ever understood it, but it's something I was doing and they would support it.
Yeah, and you seem like you're not shooting up heroin in the back of comedy clubs, so I'm sure you're fine.
I mean, they think that means that's like that's like their biggest fear. Like
they're picturing crazy shit.
Exactly, but yeah, I'm pretty mellow.
You don't smoke or drink?
I smoke and drink, but just weed and alcohol, nothing really more.
Okay. I would wonder what you would be. I'm a weed, alcohol, sure, obviously.
Yeah.
And I like shrooms.
I'm a big shroom guy, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. I mean, only as of somewhat recently, but
Really?
But I've always liked it.
What so I would do it for spiritual purposes. What is your process there?
No, I'm the same way. It means I'm on this big Zen kick, and
I'm glad I got you behind the shotgun.
No, it's perfect, and I think the alcohol and weed, I like, but they're more just fun. But I can't do any serious thinking on them. Like weed really just makes me play video games and eat food, and then alcohol just makes me bubbly. But I like shrooms. I like doing life on shrooms. I kind of have like a different. I think about. I'm happier too. It feels great. Yeah.
Do you microdose or do you?
I mean, in between. I mean, it's not. I'm not taking big boy doses, but I'm also not microdosing. I'll take like, what is it like between 1 or 2 grams? So I don't know if that's considered microdosing, but.
Have you ever had like a trip?
No. I mean, I took acid and kind of tripped on that.
Really?
But yeah, in college.
Dude, okay, I'm learning about you.
I know it seems unexpected, but it also, I've been hanging out with comics since I was 18, so you just end up being part of these worlds. And I'm always pretty restrained when I take it. It means. Yeah. But
I think this is what I say: don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
You don't. I guess you don't present yourself as a guy who. Okay. You don't. Sorry, you don't present yourself as a guy who would do those.
No, and a lot of people have said this too. I'm not surprised.
Do you like that you're not perceived that way, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just mostly that I'm Asian. I mean, there's really not too much. If you're Asian and wearing glasses, people will say that about you.
Right.
I don't really think that there's other aspects of me that add to that. I expect that I'm not like, I don't know, having weed-themed backpacks everywhere. Right. But I think just more there's not that many Asian comics, and there's not that many Asian comics with yeah.
So your dad is Indian, mom's Vietnamese.
Yeah.
And I know I can speak very confidently what it's like being mixed and all that shit in the black community.
Sure.
But in the, what would I just say, Asian community?
Yeah.
What is that like for you? I'd imagine it's a little more complicated.
Yeah, I definitely grew up feeling pretty raceless because you don't really, I mean, I wouldn't say there's any sort of people being weird about it, but definitely like Koreans end up having these pretty strong groups, and I mean Koreans, Chinese, like you find community in your subgroup, and there's a lot of these subgroups in California, and I never quite wanted to join the Indian club or the Vietnamese club, and I mean, so I just never really thought about it too much in that sense, where I never really quite felt like I wanted to join any of these parts, but I also didn't really feel like I didn't have communities and stuff.
You seemed like pretty balanced.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I know that colorism is a thing in the Asian community? Is it? I'm just gonna word this ignorantly, so get ready.
No, go for it. Yeah.
Who is ranked higher, Vietnamese or Indian?
My personal rankings. No. Yeah, I don't know. I guess in that all that colorism, the lighter you are, the better you are. But I never really felt that too much in. And I also grew up in Diamond Bar. It's a lot of Asians, a lot of Indians, and a lot of Koreans. So it's.
Sounds like life wasn't dangerous. It was good.
No,
chill.
yeah. I would imagine if I grew up in in LA, I would have had very different. But I grew up in a suburb, so it's a very different upbringing.
You seem to be very comfortable in yourself.
I think so. I think when I was a little younger, like probably in high school, I probably wasn't. But
How old are you?
25.
Okay, God, man.
Yeah.
I feel old as fuck, dude. I'm 31.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you. I think that's another thing that I think makes your comedy so crisp and good is the self-awareness. I mean, you've seen a new comic. You've seen a comic who's like a year in.
Of course, yeah.
And they're just gonna emulate Louis C.K. or fucking whoever, and they're not them. And then, have you ever watched somebody like become them?
Oh, of course. Even decent comics, they're still doing a worse version of a comic they liked, which I don't think is the worst thing in the world, but...
Who's your guy or guys? Who's your Mount Rushmore?
Yeah. I mean, right now, I really watch a lot of Kyle Kinane. I like Chappelle. I like Stovall. Nate Bargatze. I think when I started off, I was really into like joke guys. I mean, Mark Norman, Sam Morril. I was listening to those albums on repeat. Dimitri Martin. But as I started shifting styles, I've started to try and watch a lot more. Roy Wood Jr. is one of my favorites. He probably is the one that kind of drove my style the most.
He came out with something recently, didn't he?
He had a special come out last year, I think.
Okay.
But maybe there's a more recent one that I haven't seen.
I know it's something about fatherhood or something like that.
His Father Figure special, which I believe came out 2018, is one of the best albums of all time.
That's a big statement.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I mean, it's genuinely incredible. And I think everything since then has been good, but not quite as good.
What makes it incredible to you?
It just, I've always found like there's either someone does jokes or the punchlines are so set and it's really funny, but not, you don't really remember it after. Or the opposite, where someone has great ideas, but it's not really that funny, even though you do remember what they were talking about. And I felt like he had these great ideas with just these killer punchlines. And, I mean, this distills it, but it was just it really felt like the best hybrid of the two. I mean, and I love Gary Goldman. I think he kind of fits that too. But I think part of watching Gary Goldman is, he's the long bit guy, and I enjoy it because he's going on for a long time. Roy Wood Jr., when I was watching, I was like, people don't get that these are 8 to 10 minute long ideas that build upon each other and further an argument, because he's so funny throughout. You don't even notice it.
Right.
I mean, Goldman kind of has the same thing, but he was the one I noticed the most.
I like how you said furthered an argument. It's so I wish I need to start recording people before, like recording their sets before I do this with them, because I want to reference your jokes. I don't see you.
No, of course.
Enough.
It's also just hard. You laugh at something, and the minute they stop doing stand up, it just fades away. There's something about jokes in that quality.
And it's like you're busy focusing on yourself.
The whole course.
I'm glad that I don't seem. A little bit about me. I'm working on myself.
Yeah.
I don't. I always get worried that I'm bothering people, especially someone like with your personality type. You're very calm.
I'm quiet. Yeah,
quiet. And I know that my personality can be a lot. I know that I can come off as obnoxious. I'm pretty sure I've come off pretty mean to people. Probably.
I've never felt that way.
Well, that's good.
But almost just to hate you for further. If you ever feel like that, it's probably not true.
Well, thank you.
But I get that feeling that you're bothering somebody. Yeah, I relate to it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you feel like you bother people?
I mean, I think it's just a human thing. I also think you feel that way about people you like. I think whenever you like somebody, you don't want to blow it. I mean. Yeah. And I like a lot of people. So.
Yeah, and coming here and trying to build this community for myself, like I was fucking talking to people, like a friend back home recently. Yeah. And maybe I think you'll get this. What is it? Holiday blues or whatever? Sure. It's so real. Like it's it's
affective. Yeah.
Cold and the trees are dead.
No. Yeah.
And like not knowing anybody.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing a first winter here. I was lucky enough to move here with a roommate from college who was also moving to Chicago. So I always had somebody. I think it would have been brutal
Yeah.
if I didn't really know anybody through that first winter.
Dude, I moved here with a girlfriend and we broke up a month and a half.
I kind of, yeah.
At least but luckily we were smart enough to get a 2-bedroom.
I see.
So we survived that year with each other. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But
brutal though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I got that new bed.
This is a sweet apartment.
Thank you.
And that's not just because I have low standards for Comet's apartments. This is genuinely a sweet apartment.
Thank you. You know Riley Cosgrove?
Yeah.
He was not a fan of my apartment. He looked down on it immediately.
Yeah.
You hear that, Riley, if you listen?
No, Riley has a condescension to every word drips with it, so I wouldn't take it personally.
Yeah, no, I was I was thrown off with it at first.
Yeah.
I had met him and talked to him a little bit, and he was kind of Riley.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't know this guy, you know. And then he sits down, and immediately he's like he needed a toothpick. And just, like I wanted it with a notepad, just judging my space.
No, that's why I love him. I mean, I love seeing him talk to people. It genuinely makes me happy. I love seeing him meet someone for the first time and watching that person's face. It is probably one of the best.
He is very much himself.
He's incredible.
Do you have like a clique? You got friends out here now?
I think so. I kind of hang out with like I hang out with with like a steady group of comics who I write with and enjoy spending time with both in and outside of comedy.
Is there like friend group you're thinking of in particular? You're welcome to not say names if you don't want to.
No, I mean I hang out with the Can of Worms people, which are like Andrew Shanklin, Jonathan Dunn, who's my neighbor, Jeff Braun. I also hang out with like Sam Dickey a lot. He's probably the person I hang out with the most. We write together a lot.
I need to expand it. When this is done, I'll probably bother you about it later. But if you could recommend people that you think would fit this.
Yeah, no, totally.
Thank you. Because
I will. Yeah.
I know this doesn't fit this style of conversation doesn't fit everybody.
No, of course.
God damn it. What was I gonna? Oh, your goals. So you don't want to be a touring comic.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm not opposed to it, but I don't want to do the pain where you have to tour small markets, which I feel like the audiences aren't that fun. Which I think that if you want to get to the biggest level as fast as possible and to become the best entertainer, you have to do that. It means if you want to become a versatile, flexible comic that does well anywhere, you have to do that. That really strengthens you. But that doesn't interest me too much. I care about putting out a cool hour. Yeah. In which case, I think the city is perfect for that. It means you get a little bit of the variety. It means it's not so homogenous where you can do a bad joke and have it only get through because liberal audiences like it.
Right.
It's heterogeneous enough for that, but it's all low stakes. You can do a lot of stand up. You get a great stage time, and the crowds are great. Crowds are smart. They get what you're talking about. They're generous.
What is a fun audience to you?
I think just so my favorite audiences are first that there's some granularity to what they laugh at. If they're just hot and they're laughing at everything, I don't really love that, just because it's hard to tell what works. And I think that I like audiences that don't have short attention spans. Sometimes you feel it where it's like the minute that you have 2 lines of setup, they're like, okay, we don't need you to orate up there. But if they're down to go with you and they're generous enough to listen, then I really like them.
Okay.
But I try. It means I've kind of maybe imply that I'm really rigid what I care about, but I mostly I think there's a big difference between like a Duluth audience.
Ooh, Duluth, what is that?
Or just any sort of small town city.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a random, I don't even know, Wisconsin, very north part of Wisconsin.
Right. It's a different thing.
Yeah.
I find myself concerned when I get on stage in those places.
Yeah.
Especially because like, when I talk about race, you feel it.
Yeah.
And it makes them uncomfortable and sometimes angry, and that's a whole.
Sure. And people have very different understandings if they're in Chicago versus if they're in a place where.
Yeah. I have one more question for you, and then we can take this picture, and I will leave you alone.
Hell yeah, man. This is great. I'm having a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you. Do you have a show later today?
No, I'm chilling.
Nice.
I'll probably chat a bit before I head out.
Okay. What is your 5-year plan? When you're my age.
Yeah. When I'm old, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I want to continue sort of. So I'll be in the city for 5 years. I'm in grad school. So I'll be here for at least 5 years. So I'll be Chicago-based. I think the goals are to keep putting out cool hours I'm proud of, but also be able to set up my shows in cool places. Means I don't mean to be saying I only want to do city shows, but I do think that I want to be able to be able to headline in places I would enjoy, and or have an audience where even if you do a smaller area, people are there to see you and they kind of vibe with me, so I can do what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So I just want to do longer sets as much as possible, put out cool stuff, and yeah, maybe no concrete goals except for and keep getting better.
Yeah, you. It's funny, for someone as rigid as you are, you also have a almost a laissez-faire about the future. It's like you're like, okay, this next step, and you're not too focused on the future as much as whatever project is right now that you know will propel the next thing.
I try to focus on things I can control, in the sense that you can improve as a comic, but whether someone lets you do their club, you don't really have control over that.
Right.
And maybe the kind of comic I have to be to have them ask me. And just like I don't like the business side of, in terms of like hanging around the right people, knowing how to. I'm not good at knowing how to ask people I never met before. I'm sure some people are really good at it. I don't know how to ask someone I've never met, and I'm not too interested in developing those skills.
Yeah.
So I think trying to think about like specific clubs or specific venues or anything, it's just I don't really have control over it, so I don't really think about it.
That's fair. I see a lot of brightness in your future. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, I guess we can take this picture and do the thing.
Hell yeah.